Happy Thursday, Argonauts! Alright, so today you guys are going to learn about the Jim Crow laws, and the goal is that you understand what they were and what they were meant to do in society. How are they supposed to affect society is what I want you to be able to answer at the end of this. Alright, so I'm going to go through the slides with you like I do every single time I do these, just so you know and you can see exactly what to do. We're going to skip step one because you're on step one. You're watching the tutorial, and I really am having fun making these for you guys. And if I can't teach in the classroom, at least I can teach on these. All right, so I'm going to click Google Classroom. It's going to pull up, your Google Classroom homepage, not your homepage, and then you'll go find your classroom for Arkansas history. Scroll down, find your Jim Crow assignment, and your assignment is a Google form. Okay, you have 7 questions. 7 questions, and I do want you to read the questions. You don't have to read the answer options. Just read the questions, so it gives you a little bit more purpose when you're watching the videos. All right, now we're going to go back to our slides. You're on step 3 now. First video I want you to watch are the Jim Crow laws. It tells you what they are, gives you examples of them, what their intention was, and they do sound an awful lot like black codes during the Reconstruction era. We talked about them because they are black codes, and eventually they were legalized. Well, not all of them, but practiced, and some were legalized. So clip number 2 talks about Plessy versus Ferguson, and one of the Jim Crow laws was that there was segregation, that you had the blacks had to sit in the back of the bus and the whites got to sit in the front of the bus. And the reason for that was intentional. It showed status. It showed that one group was superior to the other. One of the other Jim Crow laws was that a white man and a black man couldn't shake hands because it showed an equality of status. African Americans were not able to be referred to as Mr. or Mrs., yet they had to address white people as Mr. or Mrs. So those are just some of the Jim Crow laws that there were. But segregation was the main focus in Plessy versus Ferguson. A court case was filed, and the court decided, you know what, as long as you have equal accommodations, so blacks and whites have to have equal accommodations, they both should be able to sit on the bus, but there's nothing wrong with them sitting in separate parts of the bus. So we're going to go ahead and legalize segregation. And segregation is separating of 2 different races or 2 different things. And so that really was a landmark case that put the Constitution backing legal segregation, unfortunately. And then you have the Brown versus the Board of Education. This is a case 6, actually, where in Kansas, it started in Kansas with a father that wanted his 2 daughters to be able to get a good education. And they had a school a mile down the road, yet they had to walk, I think it was 4 miles across busy railroads to get to a school that wasn't even nearly as adequate as the other school that was just less than a mile from their house. And so he sued, and there were other families, 5 other families that were suing around the nation. And so they compiled all of those cases and said, all right, we're gonna sue the federal government and say this is discrimination and it goes against the 14th Amendment. And you guys should all remember the 14th Amendment is citizenship rights. We talked about that heavily during Reconstruction. All right, so you have the families in court now, and they're battling it out. And the father, of these 2 girls said, look, how in the world is it an equal education if they're taught from the time that they are young that they are inferior to whites? How is it legally okay to say that it's separate but equal when somebody can't shake my hand because they're a different color, and that would show an equality of status? So it really did show that you could not have an equal education as an African American in a black school because they were taught that they were lower than. And if you have low self-esteem, that affects every aspect of your life. And so eventually that overturned the segregation. It made it unconstitutional, and that brings us to our next topic, which tomorrow or next week will be the Little Rock Nine.